For the first time in a long time, or possibly ever, you have the mainstream media that is turning on the current government, which just so happens to be Justin Trudeau. And believe me, and I'm sure you're already aware, there's a lot of ammunition that the mainstream media has to now use against Justin Trudeau and the radical woke liberals, but it's all toppling down finally. Welcome back to another video, everybody. Before we get into it, I want to encourage everyone to smash the like button and subscribe if you haven't yet already. This is very exciting. You're going to see some mainstream media actually grill Justin Trudeau and Trudeau's government. And I think that's because they realize it's a sinking ship, and maybe it's for superficial reasons. Maybe it's because, hey, the views aren't bringing it in the way that it normally did, right? Trudeau's great and this and that, and that's just not what people want to hear because it's not the truth. So maybe it's for the right reasons, or maybe it's not for the right reasons, but nonetheless, it is awesome to see. We're going to take a look at a few of these different clips, but before we do, I do have a message from today's sponsor, which is super important to protect yourself online and your digital footprint. I want to thank today's sponsor, Private Internet Access. We have teamed up together, and they are willing to offer my audience 83% off by using code SUNSHINE, which can be found linked down in the description or the pinned comment below. There is a massive amount of censorship that's happening around the world, and Justin Trudeau is taking it into his own hands, which is why you need to protect yourself with a VPN. Now, what a VPN does is it encrypts your personal information so that when you're browsing on different websites, your info isn't shared. It's almost a way of putting a cloak over yourself, and the favorite way that I go about doing this is with Private Internet Access. Even when it comes to simple things like getting the right information from the news, there is massive amounts of censorship happening. And the only way that you can really get an unbiased opinion is with a VPN. But above and beyond that, if you want to get different shows and movies on different platforms such as Netflix or Disney, and there's these geolocation restrictions, the only really way around that is with a VPN such as Private Internet Access. Not only can you do that from a computer or a tablet, but you can also do that from your phone, which is why Private Internet Access is the best way that I like to go about it. It's user-friendly, it's very affordable, and it's a best way of saying F you to the government. Once again, the link for Private Internet Access and code SUNSHINE is linked down in the description or the pinned comment below. And just remember, the government doesn't want you to hide your identity, but you should take the matter into your hands. And that's why Private Internet Access and I have teamed up to offer you guys 83% off. Thank you, Private Internet Access, for sponsoring today's video. Well, it's not just the mainstream media that's turning on Justin Trudeau. You also have the government now is completely fed up with these pro-Palestinian protests, and some are actually calling them anti-Semitic protests, or even above and beyond that, pro-Hamas protests. You have Liberal MP that is commenting on this recent clip of what happened in Ottawa. Look at the sheer numbers, and they're literally, this whole protest is celebrating what happened from Hamas attacking Israel, from my understanding, on October 7th. And this is like no longer going to be allowed in Canada. It seems like the government's going to actually take the necessary steps to ban these types of protests. Let's take a look.
From the river to the sea. From the river to the sea. When I say from the river to the sea, you reply with Palestine is almost free, because our resistance attacks are proof that we are almost free. October 7th is proof that we are almost free. Long live October 7th. Long live the resistance. Long live the Intifada. Long live every form of resistance.
So this will not be allowed in Canada for much longer. Let's take a look at what the Liberal MP actually had to say. It's hateful language, and it's absolutely, utterly disgraceful. Glorifying the terror and death perpetrated by Hamas on October 7th is reprehensible and incites hatred. No protest, whatever the reason, should include this despicable language. And you have one of the top comments, petrified COVID stupid parent. Why don't you do something about it? You're the government, you spineless cuck. But this is something that the government has talked about in the past, where Justin Trudeau himself has said that these are anti-Semitic protests. And I think that you're going to start to see the government actually cracking down on that. So I'd love to know down in the comments, how does that make you feel? Are you glad that there's going to be an end, they're going to put an end to these protests, or do you think that they should be allowed to continue protesting? Let me know down below in the comments. Next up, you have Justin Trudeau absolutely getting ripped apart by a reporter for saying he's going to go around provinces to solve the housing crisis. This is very disgraceful. Let's take a look at it.
The provinces have again written to you asking you to stop the overreach in the areas of their jurisdiction and stop attaching conditions to funding. Can you explain why you're treading into provincial responsibilities so much? Is it because you don't believe the provinces are doing their jobs?
On the contrary, we have worked tremendously constructively with provinces over the past few years to deliver things that really matter for Canadians. Take $10 a day childcare. We move forward with historic agreements first signed here at BC to invest in an area that obviously is something that the province has primary carriage over. But we recognize that bringing down childcare prices for people across BC, supporting early childhood educators with better wage grid, and creating more spaces was something the federal government needed to engage in. So we showed up with a lot of money to help BC move forward on childcare. This is something that is great for families in BC. It's great for getting more women into the workforce, and it's great for young people who are doing better when they get to grade 1. These kinds of things are exactly the kind of things where we need to be doing more of. Now, there are certain conservative provinces that have resisted or objected to us showing up with childcare money, but I can tell you, families that I've spoken to right across the country, including in conservative provinces that wouldn't have invested in childcare if it hadn't been for the federal government choosing to step up, are deeply grateful. At the same time as mortgage rates went up for many, many families because of interest rates, they were saving thousands of dollars a month because we cut childcare fees in half. Our focus as a government is on working with provinces to deliver for Canadians. But in areas like the housing crisis, there are certain provinces that are upset. Again, not BC, which actually led the way with the BC Builds program, which we've actually adopted and said, okay, any province that wants to do like BC and put $2 billion towards affordable homes with the BC Builds program, will match that $2 billion and make sure that even more gets done. That's the way the Federation should be working. But when I hear provinces upset because we're signing deals with big cities, putting money in the city's coffers so that they can increase density, so they can build more homes faster, invest in affordability, I know that's what needs to happen. And provinces that are not being ambitious on housing, well, people in their provinces still deserve to have solutions to the housing crisis, even if the province doesn't want to step up with the same level of ambition. So
It's super disingenuous for Justin Trudeau to get out here and say that he's actually trying to work with the different provinces. Whenever he goes to visit Alberta, he does it under the radar and doesn't let Danielle Smith, the premier of Alberta, know. He goes in and out of places where he knows that he's going to be confronted and questioned by smarter people, which is 99% of the population, but by smarter politicians. And it's weird, man. He's like a slimy little cockroach. It's very bizarre.
Unabashed about saying, I am ambitious to solve problems for Canadians right across the country. I am ambitious about investing in solutions to make sure our economy is fair for every generation. I'm going to work where I can in partnership with provinces that want to, like BC and others have, and places where they want to block the kinds of investments that are going to help Canadians. I'm just going to try and figure out ways to help Canadians directly as necessary. I'd always rather work with provinces, but if we have to, I will go around them and be there for Canadians, because this economy deserves young Canadians getting the support they need.
Yeah, I mean, that is true, but that's just not happening from Justin Trudeau. And we've proven that time and time again. And the best thing that could possibly happen is if you have the coalition come to an end, Jagmeet Singh turns against Justin Trudeau and calls an election, and then you're going to see a massive change in power. But Pierre Poilievre actually went on mainstream media and debunked that and said Jagmeet won't call an election because he's after his pension. He's a sellout. He's a sellout Singh for his pension. Let's take a look at that clip. Here we go.
Again, I don't think the election should be on Diwali. It's an important holiday for a lot of people. Just move it forward a month. But of course, it's not about Diwali. They want to get their pensions. That's why Jagmeet Singh doesn't want an election right now. He doesn't get pensioned up until next year. And so he's keeping Trudeau in power and avoiding an election he might lose, or he will lose, until he gets past the pension finish line. So they're putting their pensions and their paychecks ahead of the well-being of Canadians who can't pay their bills. It's another example of how Trudeau is not worth the cost. Again,
No, you're seeing this over and over and over again, and Pierre Poilievre does a great job of constantly laying out the facts and, I mean, absolutely making a mockery of the Liberals and especially Jagmeet Singh. Let's take a look at Melissa Lantsman now up on CTV and just really leaning into the Liberals and their failed policies and the budget and the carbon tax. Here we go.
Would a Conservative government reverse the capital gains tax changes that the Liberals have brought in with this budget?
Well, let's get back to how we started. We have the Prime Minister who said 8 years ago, 9 budgets ago, that the rich would pay their fair share. And we know what has happened is that that's not the case. It isn't Justin Trudeau and people like him who have a trust fund who can shelter away those taxes. It isn't the billionaires that he vacations with on islands that move their money to other jurisdictions that have paid this. It's everyday Canadians, welders, plumbers, single mothers, seniors that have paid for all of the spending and all of the taxes that Justin Trudeau has imposed on Canadians.
So I don't understand if that's not really an answer to the question about whether a Conservative government would change that policy in particular, which does apply actually to corporate trusts.
Actually, we're going to continue to focus on axing the tax and building the homes and fixing the budget and stopping the crime. That's what we're talking about with Canadians. And I'm sure that when we have a platform, you will be the first to know, and we might even announce it on your show.
Well, I look forward to that very much. But I think, like, in this instance, I'm just asking for your policy position on something very specific that, and I'll be totally transparent, the Liberals are using to try and wedge against you, right? They're trying to say that your party, as a consequence of not coming out in support of this measure, is not prepared to make wealthy people in this country pay their fair share. You can dispel that very easily by saying we would keep it or we would reverse it, but you're not.
We're going to fight a prime minister who hasn't made anybody pay, or had the rich guy pay for his promises. He's had everyday Canadians pay for every single one of his inflationary budgets that he's brought forward. And when we do have a platform, you will be the first to know.
So it's fair to say you don't have a position on that tax change at this point?
Well, we're going to continue to fight the fight that we have been fighting for everyday Canadians who are paying far too much, paying more for gas, for groceries, for home heating. They can't afford to live, and that's why we are going to vote against this budget.
Mr. Davies.
The craziest thing is that in the new budget, that that capital gains tax, that hurts all of us. That is absolutely insane, man. 63 or 66% capital gains on anything over $250,000. That is absurd. That means that if you inherit a house, if you get a house that grows in value and you pay it off and you sell it, you don't even get the money. The government is after everything. It is so weird that this is the state of Canada where if you make, the government wants you to make little amounts of money, so you're constantly in poverty, you can't do anything, and you rely on them for cheap handouts, really cheap handouts. And if you try to claw your way into the next tax bracket and, you know, do something financially or secure yourself financially for yourself, for your family, for your future, you can't, because the government is taking all of your freaking money. Next up, we have Chrystia Freeland getting confronted right here by mainstream media. Like, this is insane, man. She is left speechless, and it's absolutely embarrassing. And good job on this reporter for really grilling her. Here we go.
My focus is not on the Conservatives. My focus is on Canadians. And our budget today was about meeting the moment for Canadians. It was about fairness. It was about saying Canadians have real needs right now. They need more homes built faster. They need life to be more affordable. They need us to invest in the economic capacity of the country. They need us especially to do it for fairness for younger Canadians who are struggling to get ahead. And they need us to do it in a fiscally responsible way. That is the plan that we put forward today. And it's going to be up to the Conservatives to say whether they support it or not.
But the focus that you drew in your response was very much, for example, on the new tax, the changes to capital gains tax. And I'm wondering, did you need to even introduce those changes if you had acknowledged that the housing crisis was what it was at an earlier juncture? Would you need to be spending so much on increasing the supply if you had realized perhaps earlier that you could have deflated demand to better impact prices and not raise taxes in any way?
Canada is a growing country, and I think that is a great thing. I think as a country, we have been under-investing in housing for a generation. So I am really glad
8 years.
that our government
Not 8 hours.
is investing massively in housing, is investing massively in the infrastructure to support housing. And I am glad to see provinces and municipalities and also the private sector and not-for-profits really getting involved. I think it's great that Canada is growing. It's just really important to be sure that a growing country has enough homes, that we have homes for young Canadians, that we have homes for new Canadians.
It's artificial growth, right? I mean, they're real people. It's not inflated numbers. It's not imaginary numbers, but it's artificial in the sense that we don't have the infrastructure to house, to accommodate 41 freaking million people here in Canada. So they're bringing in more people when we don't have anywhere to accommodate said people, the jobs for the people or the housing for the people, the roads, the car. Like, there's just not enough shit here in Canada for 41 freaking million people. We're taking off weight. We're biting off way more than we can chew. And then they brag about how many people are in here. And now they have the audacity, the Liberal government has the audacity to actually complain about the immigration. You've been in power for 8 years and you have screwed people over, and now you're saying, but we could fix it. We could fix it. That's gaslighting. You're causing the problem and you're offering to sell the solution. It's insanity, man. These people, they need to go. And look at her. She's breaking the fourth wall. She's looking directly at the camera at us Canadians while she's being interviewed. These people are freaking weird.
That is about fairness, and that's what we're doing.
Wasn't that your government's job over the last 8 years? When you say for generations governments have been under-investing, doesn't that make your own government culpable?
Our government has been focused on housing and focused on infrastructure since we first formed government. The challenge is more acute now. It's more acute in Canada, and it is more acute around the world. And we're stepping up and we're recognizing that. I think the really important thing to take away from this budget is we recognize that this is a pivotal moment for young Canadians. It's a pivotal moment for millennials. It's a pivotal moment for Gen Z. In our pre-budget tour going across the country, I've heard from so many people, young Canadians themselves, but as much their parents and grandparents saying, I want my kid and my kid's friends to be able to afford their own home. I think we all believe that, and we know it takes an activist government which is investing, and crucially, it takes a government that's prepared to lead the charge and change the mindset of the country. Cut through the red tape, get municipalities to accept gentle zoning. That is all happening. I'm very, very optimistic.
Right, but why weren't you prepared and willing to do that in 2021, for example, when the average price of a home was already 97% higher than 2015? Were you talking to people in Toronto in the age group that you're referencing 2 years ago who thought they could afford a home there, or in Vancouver who thought they could afford a home then? Why didn't you try and meet the moment then to avoid having to spend as much as you are now to try and meet the moment now?
Well, 2021, of course, was still peak COVID. So The
Well, it kept going up in 2022.
No, so yeah, but
Immigration
you
kept going up.
referred to 2021. That was peak COVID. There were a lot of distortions through that period, and some of those economic distortions are part of the reason that housing is such a challenge. I think the important thing is to be meeting the moment now. The important thing.
Interest rates were at an all-time low. Justin Trudeau said that, and there's a famous quote where Justin Trudeau said, "Glenn, how could you ask that? Interest rates are at an all-time low." And then within months or within the next half a year or whatever it was, they skyrocketed and everybody was shitting their pants because you saw interest rates go from 1% or 0.5% up to 2%, 3%, 4%, 5%, 5.5%, 6%. It just climbed and climbed and climbed. The government told people, they looked at the cameras and said, "We are the government. I am the prime minister. I run the show. And I am saying it's safe for everybody to go and get mortgages and borrow money. Now is the best time because interest rates are at an all-time low." And the next thing you know, they weren't. And everyone is screwed. So it's the government. It's literally the government's fault. They said, "Go and do this." Millions of people did. And now millions of people are screwed. And they're saying, "Well, yeah, but there was a lot going on." Dude, you caused the problem. Just admit it.
Is to be doing everything we can, to pulling every lever, to pressing every button to get more homes built. That is what our government is doing. Our government is also really focused on affordability for all Canadians, and our government is focused on investing on productivity and growth of the economy. And the way we're going to do it is pursuing fairness for all Canadians, especially young Canadians. That's the plan we presented today. I think that's what Canadians want and need.
Why are you so focused, solely focused, I should say, on the supply side? And I'll bring it back to the issue of demand. Because the portion, or the number rather, of temporary residents in this country has doubled as of January over the last 2 years. Again, not something that happened overnight, happened over the past few years. Your government has just now decided to address the temporary stream of immigration. Is there any consideration to looking to the permanent stream temporarily while the housing crisis is as acute as it is? Or is the plan solely to spend more to attempt to drive the supply of housing? Why not tackle demand in a more meaningful way?
Oh, I think that's a really good question. And I do think it's important for us to be sure that housing supply and the number of people in Canada match up. And that's why the work that Mark Miller has been doing over the past few months is so important. Let's remember, change in visa requirements for Mexicans, a cap on international students, a huge source of temporary residents, and a cap on the number of temporary residents. I think that there is more work to do when it comes to temporary residents, particularly when it comes to temporary foreign workers. So I absolutely agree that.
Is it fair to say your government will do more on that side?
I absolutely agree that that is important. I do though want to say more broadly, I believe in a growing Canada. I think that that is a strength of our country, that we're able to grow our population. That is a huge strength of ours when it comes to the demographic challenge so many countries are facing. We need to be sure that our housing supply and our population match up. And I think that your government didn't ensure that is what our government is absolutely focused on doing. That is what Canadians want and need.
Do you feel, I guess, some responsibility that your government didn't ensure that was the case over the past few years, therefore somewhat casting doubt on the value of immigration as you espouse it and as so many Canadians have believed? We show polls, you can see polls, of view of immigration has wavered, has changed from the steadfast way in which Canadians believed it did contribute to the economy and the fabric of our country over the years. And that is mostly due to the fact that they believe the immigration that your government presided over has negatively impacted their ability to afford a home.
Wow.
I think that Canadians
she is destroying Freeland.
What you and I are just talking about, what is just common sense, which is we need to be sure that the supply of homes is keeping up with the people in Canada, and we need to be sure that there are homes for young Canadians to live in and to buy. I also think the vast majority of Canadians welcome immigration. They welcome it because of the benefits to our society and the benefits to our economy. But what this budget is really focused on is about fairness for all Canadians, and really delivering the promise of Canada to young Canadians. And you're right to focus on housing. That is central. So is affordability. So is investments in economic growth. That's what we're doing.
I'm glad that you brought up the issue of delivering, because
the reporter, Vasi, is not buying it at all. This is wild, man. Vasi has kind of been, I don't want to say kissing their ass a little bit, but yeah, sort of. I mean, power play with Vasi, any mainstream media reporter, just over the past 8 years has been pretty soft and only asked easy softball questions to Liberals. And now that we're getting closer to election, I feel it. I feel that there might be some genuine passion that, hey, you guys are screwing us over. Like these reporters, they make good money, right? She probably makes $250,000, maybe a little bit more. And like she's probably feeling the effects of our idiot government, of them implementing, or being directly responsible for the increase in mortgage rates and cost of borrowing, in groceries and the carbon tax. And so they have a direct incentive to be like, hey, whoa, I'm now getting affected, right? Because it's not just the lower class, lower income earners. It's not just the middle class. Dude, it's everybody across the board. People that are making a lot of money, when they go to the grocery store, they've noticed that their bill is almost doubled. Like everybody's feeling it, right? Even if you make $500,000 a year, you're still spending more than you were 3 years ago. So everybody is noticing it across the board. And that is where the Liberals have really messed up, and they've tanked their party for the next 10 plus years. Even the elites or the rich or the wealthy or the top percent, the top 0.5%, they're going, yeah, man, this government is not good. No, we don't like this Liberal government anymore. Maybe they found a way to make money with the Liberals over the past few years, but that doesn't seem to be the case anymore. Everyone is feeling it, and of course, shit rolls downhill. And so we are the ones that are taking on the burden of all these massive failing policies. But I'd love to know what you guys think down below in the comments. How do you feel about the mainstream media seemingly flipping on Justin Trudeau and the Liberal government? Love to know what you guys think down below. On our way out, I'd like to encourage you guys to smash the like button, subscribe if you haven't yet already, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye for now.